When the Indiana State Police Department began in 1933, there were only 16 officers. Today, there are about 1,300 officers. The Indiana State Police Department's requirements for new recruits are extremely low in order to attract good people onto the force. Their training is also way too short with little emphasis on the laws. With recent and widespread concern about police brutality and misconduct, there comes advocacy for change and ideas on how to make the police-community relationship better. I've taken all the policing courses at Ball State, and I've studied the system and how the police play their part in that system. And it's still an option for a future career. Today we're going to learn about the current qualifications you need in order to be hired by the police department. We'll look at training and how the hours of training are dispersed, and then we'll look at a couple solutions to those problems. First, let me tell you a story about my brother. He graduated high school by the grace of God. Nobody knows how he did it. And then after he graduated, he worked at Target, and then on his 21st birthday, he started at the police academy. So I'm not trying to say that high school education either makes a person smart or not smart, but I don't really remember learning a whole lot about we learned about constitutional rights, but we didn't really learn about law. And I feel like in order to enforce law, we need to have a little bit higher educational standard. So the first problem is that the requirements are way too low, and according to the Indiana State Police website, some of the basic requirements are that you need to be a citizen of the United States, you have to be 21, you need a high school diploma or a GED, you have to have a valid driver's license, and you can't have any felonies. And I think the most concerning is definitely you only need a high school education. The other problem is that the training is way too short. All of these statistics come from the Bureau of Statistics within the United States Department of Justice, and it shows that on average, state police departments in this country require 878 hours of training. Within those hours comes 86 hours focused on criminal, traffic, and juvenile law. 6 hours is spent on stress management, 21 hours on the use of force, 16 hours on non-lethal weapons, and 9 hours on conflict management. According to the Indiana Law Enforcement Academy, their training is about 24 weeks, that's about 6 months, and they only require a little over 600 hours, which is below the country's average for state police training. So now let's talk a little bit about a couple solutions to both of these problems. First, we should increase the standards to be hired by the state police. You should have at least a 2-year degree post-high school education, because when you graduate high school, you typically have several years until you can even apply to become a police officer. So we should be encouraging people to further their education in law or in policing. We need to increase the funding for training in the State Police Academy. I know that sounds a little scary, but the State Budget Agency has all of their budgets published. For the state police in 2020, the budget was $260 million. Training received a little over $300,000. That is less than 1% of the entire state police budget, less than 1% to training. And to put this into further perspective, the Department of Education in 2020 received $8.4 billion. That's 32 times bigger. If you added the state police budget to the Department of Education budget, it would only go from 8.4 to 8.6 billion. It's not that big of a difference to even notice. Next, we need to increase the hours of at least the United States average for state police training. We need to increase the time studying the law at the training academy. The Indiana Bar states that a Juris Doctor degree in law takes about 90 semester hours. That's about 4 years, depending upon an individual's amount of time they put into their degree. Right now, law is only about 10% of the training time at the academy. We need to increase the time spent on use of force. Right now, use of force is only about 2% of the total time of training, and conflict management is only about 1%. So as you've hopefully learned, it's concerning how low the standards are in order to be hired in the first place by the Indiana State Police Department. It's also concerning how little time is devoted to studying the law. In order to enforce it, I feel like the law needs to be studied a little bit more. We should support change in the Indiana State Police Department hiring and training process. We should advocate for an increase in educational requirements to make sure that as more and more people are recruited onto the Indiana Police Department's force every year, that they are educated, that they are highly qualified, and that they have the right characteristics in order to protect and to serve.